I never thought I'd be in this position where I am today, telling you this story. But by the mercy of God, here I am, stronger than ever and covered by the blood of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. If you had told me 5 years ago that I would leave everything, my family, my inheritance, my country, my religion, I would have laughed in your face. But here I am, and I need to tell you what happened, because maybe, just maybe, someone out there needs to hear this. My name is Amira. Well, that's not my real name, but for safety reasons, I have to protect my identity. I'm from Qatar, one of the wealthiest nations in the world. And I'm not just from Qatar. I'm from that's Qatar. The Qatar where money flows like water, where luxury isn't a dream, but a Tuesday afternoon, where your last name opens doors that most people don't even know exist. I grew up in a palace. Not metaphorically, literally. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, servants who knew my coffee order before I walked into the room. I had everything. Designer clothes flown in from Paris before they hit the runway. Cars I never drove because I had drivers. Jewelry that could fund a small village. My father was a business mogul with connections to the royal family. My mother came from old money, the kind that's been around so long people forgot where it came from. But here's what they don't tell you about golden cages. They're still cages. I want you to understand something before I go any further. I loved my family. I really did. My father wasn't a monster. My mother wasn't cruel. They loved me in the only way they knew how, by protecting the family name, by preserving our status, by making sure I married well and produced heirs who would continue our legacy. In their minds, they were doing everything right. But I was suffocating. From the time I was a little girl, my life was planned out like a business transaction. And maybe that's exactly what it was. I would marry someone from an appropriate family. I would have children. I would host parties. I would represent our family with grace and dignity. I would never work. Why would I? Work was for people who needed money, and we had plenty of that. I went to the best private schools in Qatar. I learned English, French, and Arabic fluently. I studied art and music, not because I wanted to pursue them, but because cultured women knew these things. I wore the abaya in public, always modest, always proper. I prayed 5 times a day because that's what was expected. I fasted during Ramadan. I read the Quran, but I never felt close to Allah. I said the words, I went through the motions, but there was this emptiness inside me that I couldn't name. I thought maybe I wasn't faithful enough. Maybe I wasn't trying hard enough. So I tried harder, I prayed more, I read more, but the emptiness remained. When I turned 22, my parents sat me down for the talk. You know the one? The talk where they tell you they found someone suitable, that it's time to settle down, that this alliance would be good for both families. His name was Rashid. He was 38, successful, well-connected. His family owned oil refineries and had ties to the government. On paper, he was perfect. In reality, he was cold, controlling, and treated me like I was another asset to acquire. We met 3 times before my father announced our engagement. 3 times. In those 3 meetings, Rashid talked about his business, his cars, his properties. He asked me nothing about myself, except whether I wanted children, preferably sons, he said, to carry on his name. I felt sick, but I smiled. I nodded. I said all the right things because that's what I'd been trained to do my entire life. Good girls don't make scenes. Good girls don't question their parents' wisdom. Good girls certainly don't say no. The wedding was planned for 6 months away. My mother was ecstatic. My father was proud. And I was dying inside. That's when I met Omar. Omar worked for my father's company, a junior analyst, smart, ambitious, working his way up. But more than that, he was at law school at night, studying to become a lawyer. He had dreams bigger than his current situation. He had fire in his eyes. We met at a company event my father hosted at our home. I wasn't supposed to talk to the employees, that wasn't appropriate, but I was getting air on the terrace and he was there looking at the Doha skyline like it held secrets. "Beautiful, isn't it?" I said. He turned, startled, then smiled. "The city or the view from up here?" "Both, I suppose." We talked for 20 minutes that night, just 20 minutes, but in those 20 minutes, I felt more alive than I had in years. He asked me what I thought about things, not what I'd been taught to think what I thought. He listened when I spoke. He laughed at my jokes. He treated me like I was a person, not a decorative object. I was hooked. Over the next few months, we found ways to see each other. It was dangerous, so dangerous. If anyone found out, Omar would lose his job at best, face serious consequences at worst. And me? I didn't want to think about what would happen to me. We texted on a secret phone I bought. We met in quiet cafes far from my neighborhood. Once, we drove out to the desert and just sat under the stars, talking about life, about dreams, about the kind of future we wished we could have. "I'm going to be a lawyer," he told me one night, his eyes bright with determination. "I'm going to finish school, pass the bar, and actually make something of myself. Not because of who my family is, but because of what I can do." "I believe you," I said. And I did. "What about you?" he asked. "What do you want to do?" No one had ever asked me that question before. I didn't even know how to answer it. I don't know, I admitted. "I've never really thought about it. My life is already decided." He took my hand. "It doesn't have to be." Those 5 words changed everything. We fell in love. Real love. Not the arranged, contractual kind my parents were engineering. The kind where you can't stop thinking about someone, where their happiness matters more than your own, where you'd risk everything just to see them smile. But the wedding date was approaching. 3 months away, then 2 months, then 6 weeks. I was running out of time. I tried to talk to my mother. I told her I didn't want to marry Rashid, that I didn't love him, that I could find someone else. She looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Love?" she said, almost laughing. "Amira, love comes after marriage. You learn to love your husband. You build a life together. This isn't a romance novel. This is real life. Rashid is a good match. Your father has worked very hard to arrange this. But I don't even know him. You'll have a lifetime to know him. This discussion is over." I tried talking to my father. That went even worse. "You are being childish and ungrateful," he said, his voice hard. "Do you know how many families would kill for this opportunity? Rashid's family is one of the most respected in Qatar. This marriage will secure our family's position for generations. You will marry him, and you will do so with grace and gratitude. I don't want to hear another word about this." I felt the walls closing in. 4 weeks before the wedding, I told Omar I couldn't do it. I couldn't marry Rashid. I would rather die. "Then don't," he said simply. "It's not that easy." "Yes, it is. Leave with me." I stared at him. "What?" "I've been offered a position at a law firm in London. I wasn't going to take it because of you, but Amira, if you come with me, we could start over. We could build a life together. A real life, not one someone else planned for us." "Omar, I can't just leave." "Why not? What's keeping you here? A family that treats you like property? A marriage to a man you don't love? A life where you'll never be anything more than someone's wife, someone's daughter, someone's trophy?" He was right, and we both knew it, but leaving meant losing everything. My family would disown me. I would lose my inheritance, millions of dollars. I would lose my home, my status, my identity. I would be cut off from everything I'd ever known. But I would have my freedom. 3 weeks before the wedding, in the middle of the night, I packed a single bag. I took my passport, some cash, a few photos, and one piece of jewelry I could sell if needed. I left a note for my parents, not an apology, just an explanation. I told them I loved them, but I couldn't live the life they wanted for me, and I walked out of that palace for the last time. Omar was waiting for me at the airport. We boarded a flight to London, and I didn't look back. Those first few months in London were the hardest of my life, and I mean that. I went from a palace to a tiny one-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood I couldn't even pronounce. Went from having everything to having almost nothing. Omar got the job at the law firm, but it was entry-level and London is expensive. We got married in a civil ceremony with 2 strangers as witnesses. No white dress, no party, no family, just us and a registrar in a small office. But I was free. Omar worked long hours at the firm. The money he made was decent, but it wasn't palace money. We budgeted for groceries. We took the tube instead of private cars. I learned to cook, something I'd never done in my life because we'd always had chefs. I wanted to work, to contribute, but I had no skills. I'd never needed skills before. I didn't even have a college degree, just my expensive private school education that taught me how to be a proper wealthy wife. "You should go to school," Omar said one evening. "Get a degree, study something you're interested in." "We can't afford that. Community college isn't that expensive. We can make it work." "I believe in you, Amira." So I enrolled business administration because I figured that was practical. I was 23 years old, sitting in classes with 18-year-olds, learning things I should have learned years ago. It was humbling. It was hard, but it was mine. I also got a job part-time at a coffee shop near our apartment. Me, the girl who'd been served coffee her entire life, now serving it to others. My coworkers were kind, but they had no idea who I really was. No idea that I'd once had servants, that I'd lived in a palace, that I was supposed to be marrying into one of the wealthiest families in the Middle East. I was nobody now, just another immigrant girl trying to make it in a big city. And honestly, some days that felt like freedom. Other days it felt like I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. My family tried to contact me at first. Angry calls, texts calling me selfish, ungrateful, a disgrace to our name. My father said I was dead to him. My mother begged me to come home, to apologize, to marry Rashid and fix this mess. I changed my number. I had to. It was too painful. But here's the thing about losing everything. You discover what actually matters. And that's when I started noticing something strange about Omar. We'd been married for about 6 months. We were still nominally Muslim, or at least I thought we were. I prayed sometimes when I remembered. I fasted during Ramadan, though Omar said he was too busy with work. I figured we were just less devout than we'd been back home. But then I noticed he never prayed. Not once. Not even on Fridays. One evening, I was getting ready for Maghrib prayer, and I asked him if he was going to join me. He got very quiet. "Omar, is everything okay?" He sat down on our worn couch and looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Fear, guilt, something else? "Amira, I need to tell you something. I should have told you before, but I was afraid. Afraid you wouldn't leave with me if you knew. Afraid you'd judge me, but I can't keep lying to you." My heart started racing. Was he married to someone else? Did he have a secret family? Was he in trouble with the law? "I'm a Christian." I literally laughed. "What? No, you're not. You're from a Muslim family." "I converted 3 years ago," he said quietly. "I've been hiding it. From my family, from your family, from everyone. When I met you, I didn't tell you because I knew it would complicate everything. And then when we planned to leave, I thought maybe I could tell you after once we were settled. But Amira, I can't keep pretending. I love you, and I need you to know the truth about who I am." I sat down, stunned. A Christian. My husband was a Christian. In Qatar, this would be, I didn't even want to think about it, apostasy, betrayal of Islam. If anyone knew, if my family found out. But we weren't in Qatar anymore. Say something, he whispered. I don't know what to say. I mean, I noticed you didn't pray, but I just thought you were busy, or that you'd gotten less religious after moving here. But Christian? Omar, how? Why? And then he told me his story. He'd started questioning Islam in university, not because he hated it, but because he had questions no one would answer. Questions about women's rights, about violence in the name of religion, about the contradictions he saw between what the Quran said and how people acted. One day, a friend gave him a Bible, just to read to compare. And Omar, being Omar, actually read it, cover to cover. And something happened when I read about Jesus, he said, his eyes getting distant. It was different. The way he treated women with respect as equals. The way he talked about love and forgiveness instead of fear and submission. The way he died for people, not demanded they die for him. But the Quran says Jesus was just a prophet. I know what it says. But Amira, when I read the Gospels, when I read about Jesus healing people, loving people, forgiving people, I felt something I'd never felt before. Peace. Real peace. Not the kind you get from following rules perfectly, but the kind that comes from being loved perfectly. I didn't know what to say. I'm not asking you to convert, he said quickly. That's between you and God. But I needed you to know the truth. I go to church on Sunday mornings. I've told you I go to the gym, but I've been lying. I read the Bible every night after you fall asleep. I pray, but not the way we were taught. I talk to Jesus like he's actually listening, because I believe he is. Is this why you were so kind to me? I asked quietly. Back in Qatar, when we first met, the way you treated me like I mattered, was that because you're Christian? He thought about it. I think Jesus taught me to see people the way he sees them. So yes, maybe. But I also just saw you, Amira. The real you, not the one your family wanted you to be. I should have been angry. I should have felt betrayed. But instead, I felt curious. Can I come with you? I asked. To church? He looked shocked. You want to? I want to understand. I want to know what could make you risk everything, your family, your community, your safety, just to follow this Jesus. That Sunday, I went to church for the first time in my life. I didn't know what to expect. Maybe something loud and strange? But it was a small congregation, mostly working-class people, some immigrants like us. They sang songs about love and grace. The pastor talked about how Jesus came for the broken, the lost, the ones who didn't fit in. And I started crying, right there in the third row, tears just streaming down my face. Because for the first time in my life, I felt like maybe I could be myself and still be loved. After the service, an older woman came up to me. She had kind eyes and a warm smile. First time? She asked gently. I nodded, wiping my face. It's overwhelming, isn't it? Realizing you're loved just as you are. Not for what you can do or who you're supposed to be, just loved. How did you know? I whispered. Because I cried too my first time. We all do. Welcome home, dear. Home. I hadn't had a home in months. I'd left one and couldn't find another. But maybe this could be home. I started going to church every Sunday with Omar, and I started reading the Bible. Not to prove it wrong, not to compare it to the Quran, just to see what it actually said. I read about Jesus healing the sick, feeding the hungry, defending a woman caught in adultery when everyone wanted to stone her. I read about him hanging out with prostitutes and tax collectors, the outcasts of society. I read about him touching lepers, talking to Samaritans, treating women as disciples and friends. And I read about him dying on a cross, saying, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. I'd been taught that Allah was to be feared, that His mercy was conditional on our obedience, that we had to earn our way to paradise through good deeds and perfect submission. But Jesus? Jesus said, Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. rest. I was so tired. Tired of trying to be perfect. Tired of trying to earn love. Tired of feeling like I was never enough. One night, about 3 months after I'd started reading the Bible, I couldn't sleep. Omar was snoring softly beside me, and I was lying there in the dark, thinking about everything I'd learned. And I just prayed. Not the memorized prayers from my childhood, just honest words from a broken heart. Jesus, if you're real, I need you. I don't know how this works. I don't know if I'm doing it right. But I'm tired of running. I'm tired of being empty. Omar says you love me. I don't know why you would, but if you do, I want to know you. I want this peace he talks about. I want to be free, really free, not just physically, but in my heart. So if you'll have me, I'm yours. Nothing dramatic happened. No lightning, no angels, no audible voice. But something shifted in my chest, like a weight I'd been carrying for years just lifted. I fell asleep and slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I told Omar I wanted to be baptized. He cried, actual tears streaming down his face. Are you sure? Amira, this is serious. If your family finds out, I know what I'm losing, but I know what I'm gaining too. I was baptized 3 weeks later in that same small church. It was just me, Omar the pastor, and a handful of people from the congregation who'd become like family to us. As I came up out of that water, I felt it. Real freedom. Not the kind that comes from running away, but the kind that comes from running to something, someone. I felt found. But freedom comes with a cost. Somehow, I still don't know how, my family found out. Maybe someone saw pictures online. Maybe someone from Qatar spotted me at church. I don't know. But I got a message from my brother. Just one line. You're dead to us. Then my phone number was blocked by everyone in my family. Every single person. My parents, my siblings, my cousins, my aunts and uncles. All of them. Gone. An email from my father's lawyer informed me that I'd been officially removed from the will. I was to inherit nothing. The trust fund that had been set up for me was dissolved. I had no claim to any family assets or property. In their eyes, I didn't exist anymore. And yes, that hurt. It still hurts. I don't have a relationship with my parents. I'll never meet my nieces and nephews. I'm not invited to weddings or holidays or family gatherings. I've been erased. But here's what they don't understand. They gave me a priceless gift. They showed me that everything I'd valued, the money, the status, the family name, was conditional. It could be taken away in a moment. But what I have now, this faith, this peace, this love, no one can take that from me. Jesus doesn't love me because of who my family is. He doesn't love me because I'm wealthy or beautiful or successful. He loves me because he made me, because he chose me, because he died for me. And that's not conditional. That can't be taken away. The first year after my baptism was hard, really hard. I was working at the coffee shop and going to school, and Omar was working long hours at the firm. Money was tight. There were nights we ate rice and beans because that's all we could afford. I'd wake up sometimes in our tiny apartment and think about my old bedroom in the palace, the size of this entire apartment. I'd think about my closet full of designer clothes. I'd think about never having to worry about money for groceries or rent or textbooks. But then, I'd look at Omar sleeping beside me. This man who loved me enough to risk everything. I'd think about the peace I felt when I prayed, the joy I felt at church, the freedom of being myself. And I'd choose this every single time. I choose this. I graduated from community college 2 years after we moved to London. It was a small ceremony, nothing fancy, but Omar was there, cheering louder than anyone, and some people from our church came to support me. I wore a simple dress, nothing like the designer clothes I used to own. I walked across that stage to get my associate's degree, and I thought about how far I'd come. From a palace in Qatar to a community college in London. From a girl who'd never worked a day in her life to a woman who'd earned her own degree while working part-time to pay for it. I was proud, prouder than I'd ever been of anything. I got a job at a small marketing firm. It wasn't glamorous. I was basically an assistant doing whatever needed to be done. But it was a start. I learned everything I could. I watched how the consultants worked with clients. I studied how they created strategies and pitched ideas. And I realized something. I was good at this. I had a natural ability to understand what clients needed and how to communicate solutions clearly. My years of navigating complex social situations in Qatar, of reading people and understanding unspoken expectations, those skills translated beautifully into business consulting. After a year at the marketing firm, I was promoted. Then promoted again. I started bringing in my own clients. I built a reputation. Omar encouraged me every step of the way. "You're brilliant," he'd say. "You should start your own thing. You don't need to work for someone else. I don't have the capital to start a business, so start small. You don't need an office. You have a laptop and a brain. That's enough." 3 years after leaving Qatar, I started my own consulting agency. It was just me, working from our apartment. Still tiny, but now we could afford better furniture. I specialized in helping small businesses develop their marketing strategies and streamline their operations. I had no connections, no family money to fall back on, no safety net, just my education, my skills, and my faith that God would provide. And He did. My first client was a small, family-owned restaurant that needed help with their online presence. I charged them next to nothing because I was building my portfolio. But I did good work, and they told their friends. One client became 2, then 5, then 10. I learned to do my own taxes. I learned about business licenses and insurance. I learned how to network and negotiate and pitch. All things I never would have learned in my old life. Omar passed the bar exam and became a full lawyer. His income increased, which took pressure off us financially. We moved to a better apartment, 2 bedrooms, so I could have an office. 5 years after leaving Qatar, my consulting agency was thriving. I had 20 regular clients and I'd hired 2 employees to help me manage the workload. I still wasn't making palace money, not even close. But I was making enough to live comfortably. We could pay our bills, save some money, go out to dinner occasionally, take a modest vacation. But more than that, I was fulfilled. I was using my mind, building something with my own hands, helping businesses succeed. I wasn't just someone's daughter or someone's wife. I was Amira, CEO of my own company, a company I'd built from nothing. People sometimes ask me if I regret leaving, if I miss the money, the luxury, the ease of my old life. And I'm honest, yes, sometimes I miss it. I miss my mother. I miss family dinners. I miss feeling financially secure without having to worry about losing clients or making payroll. I miss the simplicity of a life where everything was provided. But I don't regret leaving, not for a second, because I'd rather be free and struggling than trapped in a golden cage. I'd rather have Jesus and a tiny apartment than all the wealth in Qatar without Him. I'd rather be loved by Omar, truly loved, respected, partnered with, than married to someone who sees me as property. I learned something crucial through all of this. Abundance isn't about how much money you have. It's about having what you need. And I have what I need. I have a husband who loves me, like Christ loves the church, sacrificially, faithfully, unconditionally. A husband who supports my dreams, who pushes me to be better, who treats me as an equal partner. I have a faith that sustains me when things get hard. A relationship with Jesus that fills the emptiness I felt my whole life in Qatar. I have a community, our church, that became the family I lost. People who've walked with us through the hard times, who celebrate our victories, who pray for us. I have work that matters, that uses my gifts, that makes a difference. I have my freedom, the most precious thing of all. The freedom to make my own choices. The freedom to speak my mind. the freedom to worship as I choose, the freedom to be myself. These things are worth more than any inheritance I lost. You know what's funny? In my old life, I had everything money could buy, but I was spiritually bankrupt. I was empty, purposeless, trapped. Now I have less money, less security, less certainty about the future, but I am rich in the things that actually matter. The Bible says, "What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul?" I almost gained everything and lost myself in the process. Thank God I got out before it was too late. My consulting agency is called New Beginnings Consulting, because that's what I want to give people. Hope that it's never too late to start over, to try something new, to build something meaningful. Every client I work with, I'm secretly praying for them. Praying for their success, yes, but also praying they'll see something different in me. That they'll wonder why I have peace despite the struggles, that maybe, just maybe, they'll ask about my faith. Some have. And I've had the privilege of sharing my story, of telling them about Jesus. 2 of my clients have started coming to church with us. One got baptized last year. Watching her come up out of that water, I thought about my own baptism and how far God has brought me. This isn't the life I expected. It's not the life I was raised to want. It's harder, messier, more uncertain. But it's mine. It's real. It's full. Omar and I are talking about starting a family soon. We can't give our kids a palace, but we can give them something better. A home filled with love, faith, and freedom. We can raise them to know that their worth isn't in their bank account or their last name, but in whose they are, the children of God. I think about my mother sometimes, wonder if she's happy, wonder if she ever thinks about me, wonder if she regrets the way things ended. I've forgiven them, my parents, my family, not because what they did was okay, but because Jesus forgave me for so much more. How can I hold on to bitterness when I've been given so much grace? I pray for them sometimes. Pray that somehow, someday they'll understand, that they'll see I didn't reject them to hurt them, I just couldn't reject myself anymore. Maybe they'll never understand. Maybe I'll never see them again in this life. That's a grief I carry, but I trust that God has a plan, even in this, even in the pain. If there's anything I want you to take away from my story, it's this: Jesus is worth it. Whatever you have to give up, whatever you have to walk away from, whatever cost you have to pay, He's worth it. I gave up millions of dollars, a palace, my entire family, my country, my identity as I knew it, and I gained everything. I gained freedom. I gained purpose. I gained real love, both from my husband and from my Savior. I gained a peace that doesn't depend on my circumstances. I gained a hope that carries me through the hard days. The money I lost, it could have run out, been stolen, lost value. The inheritance I was cut off from, it was never really mine. It was conditional on my obedience to someone else's plan. But what I have now, it's unconditional. It's eternal. It's mine not because I earned it, but because Jesus paid for it with His blood. I was lost in success, drowning in wealth, suffocating in expectation. But I've been found in faith, found by a God who saw me, knew me, loved me, and set me free. There are mornings I wake up in our apartment, small by Qatari standards, but it's home, and I make coffee in our tiny kitchen. I sit on our second-hand couch with my Bible open and a cup of coffee that I made myself, and I'm just grateful. Grateful that I got out. Grateful that Omar loved me enough to tell me the truth about his faith. Grateful for every struggle that taught me to depend on God. Grateful for the business He's allowed me to build. Grateful for the clients who trust me. Grateful for every single thing that led me to this moment. I wouldn't trade this life for my old one. Not for all the money in Qatar. Not for the palace. Not for the servants. Not for the status. Not for the family approval. Because this life is built on truth, on real love, on faith, in a God who doesn't abandon his children. My name is Amira. I'm a former heiress from Qatar who lost everything to gain what matters most. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. I'm a wife to an incredible man who showed me what true love looks like. I'm a CEO of my own consulting agency that I built from the ground up with God's help and a lot of hard work. And I'm free, really, truly, finally free. If you're listening to this and you're in a situation where you feel trapped, whether by family expectations, cultural pressure, an arranged marriage, a religion that feels empty, or anything else, I want you to know something. There's a way out. There's hope. There's freedom waiting for you on the other side of the scary decision. Is it easy? No. Will you lose things? Probably. Will people reject you? Maybe. But will you find yourself? Yes. Will you find peace? Absolutely. Will you find purpose? Without question. Jesus said, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Not life that looks good on the outside, but is dead on the inside. Not life that's safe but suffocating. Real life, full life, free life. That's what I have now. And that's what I want for you. I don't know what your cage looks like. Maybe it's a literal arranged marriage like mine was. Maybe it's a career your parents chose for you. Maybe it's a religion you're going through the motions of without really believing. Maybe it's an expectation you can't live up to. Maybe it's a version of yourself you're pretending to be to please everyone else. Whatever your cage is, I'm telling you, the door is open. Jesus opened it. You just have to have the courage to walk through. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. I'm living proof. Thank you for listening to my story. If it encouraged you, if it gave you hope, if it made you think maybe, just maybe, you could have that kind of freedom too, then it was worth sharing. May God bless you and give you the courage to step into the life He has for you. The real life, the full life, the free life, it's waiting for you. All you have to do is say yes.